Let's get started with the very basics of what an enumeration is. An enumeration is simply a named list. And by named list, I mean if we had an enum representing the animations an object can perform, it would not contain the animations themselves, or any mechanics at all. It would be a list of the names of the animations that we can recognize. For example, an enum for generic animations could be built of 4 enumerators named shake, drop, pulse, spin. And that's it. Now we can use this list to do all sorts of stuff, from assigning a specific animation to an object, deciding the flow of logic in a blueprint, to filling out a dropdown of options we can choose from in a UMG widget, and so much more. Let's create an enumeration asset and discuss what we would use it for. Right-click in the content browser and select the Blueprints category, and then Enumeration. Remember to follow good naming convention. I'll name this E-Interaction Type, and open it. This interface is very minimal. What we will do is build an example enumeration that contains common but different mechanics for user interaction. If I were making a project that can be used on multiple types of devices, for example, I would want my blueprint to change based on the types of user interaction it will receive. I'll create 4 enumerators inside of E-Interaction Type: HMD only, HMD with touch controller, mouse and keyboard, and controller only. This list already reveals a lot of the kinds of things that we will need to change based on its value. Things like user inputs to listen for, accounting for HMD with touch controllers versus no controllers, preparing the map and pawns for VR versus preparing them for desktop use, setting up how interactions will work, as well as what kind of quality settings we can set based on this enum's value. Using an HMD in VR will have much stricter constraints than an experience directly on PC. The pawns themselves will need to be set up differently whether the user is interacting within VR or via PC with a mouse and keyboard. Essentially, the value of this enumeration will change everything, but it will also allow our project to be modular and very flexible. If built properly, it will be ready to send to your end users and detect how it should run and prepare itself programmatically. This is a big example of why I use enumerations with every project and in many parts of each project, down to an enum for deciding the words used on UI buttons. Let's see what I mean by that by opening the widget w_button_main. At the top of the event graph, you'll see the event preconstruct. Here, the text of the button is being set. From inText, we have converted the text to a string, and then have plugged in a select node to choose what should be written on the button based on the value of eButtonAction. And now we can recognize that eButtonAction is an enumeration based off of the way it's been named. If the value of this enumeration is start animations, it should say activate. If the value is stop all animations, it should be stop all. Because this logic is in the preconstruct, we can see its effects directly in the UMG editor. We'll discuss this blueprint in full in the next module. Open w_user_hood. On the bottom right are 2 of those buttons. Select Activate and change the value of eButtonAction in the Details panel. Now, instead of Activate, it says Stop All, exactly what we expected. This change will not only alter the text on the button, but the effect the button has on the rest of the project because we are changing the value of the variable itself. I'll quickly set it back to start animations. In this module, we learned what an enumeration asset is and how to create one in Unreal Engine. We added 4 enumerators that represented 4 different interaction types that could potentially be used by your end users. We then discussed how the value of that enum could potentially be used to change wide-ranging aspects of a project. Then we saw how enumerations can be used for smaller tasks like changing the text on a UI button based on its value. Next, we'll discuss using a couple of enumerations to alter the behavior of blueprints and automatically create a drop-down list for our UI.